Something can hit you with a massive tsunami without you understanding where this is even coming from because you didn't feel an earthquake. Underwater volcanoes, they can cause this. They can cause sudden landslides, dome collapses that can send destructive tsunamis like the Tohoku earthquake in Japan in 2011 through the Tyrrhenian Sea, Mediterranean. Did you know that? We've talked about this in the past, and one of them is shaking right now. Actually, something is shaking beneath one of the most dangerous underwater volcanoes in Europe. And most people will never even hear about it, but you will. Hi, everyone, I'm telling you about it. And you've been asking about that volcano a lot. An earthquake was recorded near the Marsili Seamount in the Tyrrhenian Sea, an underwater volcano that's between southern Italy, Sicily, Calabria, and the Aeolian Islands. So on paper, this was not a major big quake, but the location is what makes it so important because Marsili, and it looks quite scary, is not just some random bump on the seafloor. It's a gigantic underwater volcano. It rises almost 3,000 meters, 3 kilometers. That's almost 10,000 feet from the bottom of the sea. So this is like a mountain in the Alps. This is really huge. So the summit is still around 500 meters. That's about 1,600 feet below the surface. So if you're on top of the water and if you're sailing there and enjoying your vacation, you don't see it. You have no idea. So if one of its already unstable flanks ever fails, the scientists tell us that a tsunami could reach the Aeolian Islands in around 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And the coast of Calabria and Sicily in around 20 minutes. So if there's no large earthquake that could tell everyone that a tsunami is coming, right? In Japan, okay, as soon as the shaking starts, the siren goes off and tsunami warning in most cases if it's a larger one. But this one, you don't see it. That's the scary, scary part. And if you've seen my videos about these landslides, for example, in Alaska or in Norway or even Bloodden, if that comes down all of a sudden and it's in the water, it has this bathtub effect. It creates a tsunami. And if this happens underneath the surface and you don't see it, shizzy's not shizzy's going to hit the fizzy necessarily, but it can hit the fizzy. So we have to look at these current earthquakes today and that hidden volcano underneath the Tyrrhenian Sea, and we have to understand why Marsili is still active and why this is one of the Mediterranean hazards that really sounds like science fiction. But it's absolutely real. It's absolutely real. The latest report says an earthquake happened near the Marsili Seamount yesterday. It was a weak quake around magnitude 2.7. But for volcanoes, this can mean something. The depth was almost 96 kilometers. That's 60 miles. And that is what matters because a quake that deep is not necessarily the volcano itself cracking open right on top of the seafloor, near the seafloor. But it could be magma deeper down doing something, right? So official reports say it is still uncertain if there is a direct connection to Marsili. But it may have happened inside a piece of the subducted Ionian plate. Basically, that is a slab of ancient seafloor that is diving down beneath the region. Yeah, that could be the case. But there's always a but with volcanoes. There's another possibility. It could also be related to deep processes where magma is actually generated. And that is happening at subduction zones, right? That's why we do have so many volcanoes at subduction zones. West coast of Canada and the US, for example, right? Cascadia subduction zone, all the volcanoes, Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, Mount Baker, all of them, Mount Hood, many more. So that is why people that are following what's going on in this region pay very close attention when earthquakes are happening beneath Marsili, because Marsili is one of the most complex volcanic and tectonic zones in Europe. Southern Tyrrhenian Sea, that's the location. To the south and east of it, the Ionian plate is being forced down beneath the Calabrian arc, subduction zone. That subduction helps to feed the volcanism in the region. That is why we have the Aeolian Islands. We have Stromboli there. We have the volcano, an island that is a volcano. And we have this massive hidden volcano called Marsili. So when we say underwater volcano, we do not say this is just a small cone or anything like this. Marsili is enormous, a mountain. The INGV says Marsili is the largest and highest active volcano in the Mediterranean and in Europe. It is about 70 kilometers long and 30 kilometers wide. That is about 43 miles by 19 miles. Huge! And it has more than 80 smaller eruptive centers along its structure. So that means it's not just one big crater mountain. It is a long volcanic system. It is a ridge. And we can say it's a hidden volcanic mountain chain that is sitting underneath the sea. And that's why it is so dangerous. It is so dangerous because Marsili is active, not extinct. So INGV lists it as active with prevailing activity, including degassing and seismicity. And the current activity is linked to, they say, submarine degassing. We have low magnitude earthquakes, we have volcanic tectonic processes, and we have the hydrothermal processes. So what does that mean? In simple words, fluids are moving, gases escaping, small quakes happen, the system's not dead. Does that mean Marsili is about to erupt? No, that doesn't mean that. But again, it doesn't have to erupt for its flank to collapse and cause a tsunami. Same thing with Mount Etna. Very, very dangerous. So I want to be very clear here. There is no official evidence right now that a major eruption or a major tsunami is imminent. But it doesn't need to erupt tomorrow to matter. The real concern is not only lava, the real concern right now is also collapse. Because underwater volcanoes can be very, very dangerous in a different way than volcanoes on land. So on land, we often think, oh, ash eruption, lava, pyroclastic flows, and explosions. In the case of Etna, it has an unstable flank that is underwater. So it has all the stuff on top, but it has also the underwater threat. But if it's only underwater, the nightmare scenario is this. Part of the volcanic flanks becomes unstable, and then it starts sliding. So like in Blatten, for example, maybe you have that still in your eye, a huge mass of rocks moves suddenly underwater, and that displacement pushes the sea. If your leg is underwater in your bathtub and you move it, you're creating a tsunami, right? So a scientific study has modeled possible flank failures at Marsili, and the results were actually very important. If we have small failures, that did not create significant tsunamis, but medium-sized failures already, especially if they happen in shallower water, like near the crest, they already could create dangerous waves. And if we have an extreme worst case failure, that could create these disastrous tsunamis. Again, doesn't mean it's happening tomorrow, but it can happen anytime. The hazard is absolutely real enough so that scientists actually modeled it, right? And the scary part is the timing, because this is not like the Pacific Ocean, where a tsunami may take hours to cross open water from one side to the other, from Japan to the West Coast or something like this. I mean, if the Cascadia Fault ruptures, the West Coast will get this monster tsunami within 8 to 15 minutes. But here in the Mediterranean, everything is close. So in the simulations, waves could reach the Aeolian Islands in around 10 minutes. So there's not much warning time, right? Calabria, Sicily, 20 minutes. That is barely enough time to even understand what just happened. Barely enough time to react, because you didn't have an earthquake that would warn you. And maybe really not enough time if there is no warning to the people. So that's why submarine volcanoes are so difficult. You cannot look out of your window and look, is it smoking, right? You cannot see the mountain shaking. You cannot see cracks that are opening on the slope. If you're looking at Mount St. Helens and you see a crack open, oh, you run. So most of the evidence here at Marsili is hidden under hundreds of thousands of feet of water. That's the problem. It's a giant, but it's deep enough to be invisible to us. Invisibility here is the danger. But let's talk about the history, because it has a proven track record. Marsili's volcanic activity began roughly 700,000 to like 1 million years ago. And for a long time, people thought that Marsili is like a deep submarine volcanic structure. But then research found evidence of explosive submarine eruptions in the last few thousand years. So precedent, it happened. One study found that submarine explosive eruptions at Marsili happened in the last 3,000 to 5,000 years. And they said that Marsili is still active and it should be monitored, and they should definitely reevaluate the hazards of this volcano. And the Smithsonian Global Volcanism Program lists actually 2 confirmed eruptive periods, one around 3050 BCE, plus or minus 200 years, and another one around 1050 BCE, or plus minus 200 years. So that is recent in volcanic terms. Not recent like yesterday, but recent enough that we cannot call this like a dead, extinct volcano. And what is even more interesting when it comes to Marsili is the eruptions that it produces are not only effusive, like meaning lava flows. The INGV says its main eruption types that it produces includes both effusive and explosive activity. And that matters because deep water explosive volcanism is not always easy to recognize, right? If it's hundreds and thousands of feet below sea level, the water pressure that is on top of it can actually suppress explosive eruptions. But, we have to say but, Marsili has still produced volcanic ash deposits. And that means explosive activity happened underneath the deep water. And that means this volcano is capable of more than a quiet lava leakage. So now let's talk about the current earthquake again. It was weak, was not felt by people on land, but because it was deep, it did not cause any surface effects on the seafloor, right? But small earthquakes are clues. They're not always warnings, they're not always volcanic, but they tell us something could happen. But Marsili is not the only seismic area that is active right now. We have several earthquakes recorded right now west of Mount Etna on Sicily again. Strongest was around magnitude 3, depth roughly 33 kilometers, about 20 miles. Again, not a major earthquake, but deeper than many purely shallow tectonic events, right? And that keeps us thinking. Is it stress release in the formed crust? Is it processes related to the subducting plate? Or is it possible stress changes linked to fluid movement around Etna? And this is important because southern Italy and Sicily are also not simple, right? This entire area is one of the most geologically complicated places in Europe. You have subduction, you have a back arc extension, you have active volcanoes, you have these underwater volcanic systems, you have crustal deformation, Etna, Stromboli, Volcano, Campi Flegrei, Vesuvius, and then the hidden volcanic structures beneath the Tyrrhenian Sea. So when the earthquakes are happening in this region, they definitely need context, right? 2.7 right now does not sound dramatic, but beneath the giant, active underwater volcano that has tsunami potential, that can become a story, right? So let's watch this closely. I hope you liked it. But guys, check out what's going on in other areas here. Really, really crazy. I hope you have the time to click the next one so that I can see you here. Thank you so much for supporting the channel with coffee. Link is in the description, with a membership, and with your supers and your comments and typing and liking. Thank you. Bye-bye.